Alright guys, so we're gonna review Classroom of the Elite volume, it's the last volume of year one. So we're gonna review Classroom of the Elite year one, right? So obviously I have year two volumes in the back. Now, you know, I read this light novel 3 years ago in 2021 of September. Like I even remember the exact date, bro, because like I was going hardcore Japanese. If you guys don't know, like I read these volumes all in Japanese. So yeah, guys, you have this here. But I read Classroom of the Elite volume light novel back in 2021, and at the time they only had the year two. So I read up to year two of volume five. So volume five of year two, which is basically like the 4.5 volume. It's the one with Nanase like on the cruise. Like actually, yeah. So this is where I'm at. Like this is where I stopped 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, I stopped here. Right? This is the volume I stopped at. So anything past here, I don't know. I don't know. But I basically collected a bunch of other volumes past that. Right? And eventually, and I think year two is about to end actually, bro. Like year two of Classroom Elite is about to be completed. So I'm excited. That's why I'm like getting back on the train to reread this. But I decided to reread Classroom of the Elite a second time, and now we have this, right? So, and I basically finished year one. So I reread entire year one, right? And guys, like, it's actually amazing. Like when I first read this light novel, I really did think that this was like a crazy light novel. Like this is basically liquid on paper. This is liquid fire on paper. This is the best way I can describe your Classroom Elite, because when you read Classroom Elite, it's like the type of events that happen. It's like it gets you hyped and it gets you involved in. Honestly, it's just one of the best dramas out there, like in fiction. Like, and when I do read year two, like it's I have a feeling that year two is gonna be freaking insane. Like it's gonna be even better, right? Like at least like past with what I read. But the reread was interesting because when I first read Classroom Elite 3 years ago in Japanese, you know I understood a lot of what happened, but and I thought it was really easy. Like back then, I thought like, oh my god, this light novel was like super easy. But I didn't know that I was actually missing a lot of words I didn't know. Like, because when I reread Classroom Elite, I actually ended up finding a lot of words that I didn't know. Like there's some word, of course, like I understood like pretty much like 95% was going on, but there were still like words and details that I missed out on. Like when I read the first time, like I missed out on a lot of details, right? And that wasn't just because it was the first read, but it was also because my Japanese ability wasn't as good 3 years ago. So it's gone a lot better now. So that's why I'm able to basically anytime I pick up like a Classroom Elite novel, like I'm able to pick out every single detail. Like every single detail I'm able to pick up. Because like at this point, like, I'm at a level now where I'm able to read Classroom Elite like, almost without a dictionary. And I mean, I don't need a dictionary, but the reason why like I use a dictionary for like phrases and like words that I don't know is just so that I can like learn new words. Like even though I don't need to look up the words in the book, sometimes, if I see a phrase that I'm not familiar with, then I have to look it up sometimes because it's like, well, it's like why am I just gonna miss it when I can just look it up, So I don't need a dictionary to read like Classroom Elite, but I usually do it as a form of studying. Because like when I read Classroom Elite, it's like when I read light novels, guys, like I'm like studying. Like it's like a form of studying, guys. So like that's why I'm like super into it. But yeah, guys, this light novel is actually like a pretty hard light novel to read. Even though the kind of story is very simple. It's sort of simple in the aspect that I actually ChatGPT'd like the difficulty of Classroom Elite and according to ChatGPT, the light novel, the Japanese, the difficulty of this novel is actually like medium to high. So that's like it's still like a really hard light novel. And I actually looked up other. I actually asked ChatGPT in Japanese like find other light novels that have high difficulty of Japanese. So like basically you need a high level of Japanese in order to read these light novels. And Mushoku Tensei popped up. And of course the Monogatari series popped up. But I was surprised that Mushoku Tensei was up there because when I read Mushoku Tensei, that light novel, it was very easy for me to read, even though it was like a lot of fancy vocabulary. Like for me, it was generally very easy. But that explains like my ability that explains like the extent of my ability. Like the fact that I'm able to read something like a hard novel like this, explains that like yeah, my Japanese ability is like pretty good. You know what I mean? Because like I'm kind of used to the expressions of the light novels and all the fantasy vocabulary and all that. There's like very specific vocabulary that not many natives know, but I know, and that's just because like I'm exposed to these things. But in terms of the hardest light novel I've ever read, the hardest light novel I've ever read in Japanese is probably gonna be ReZero and Monogatari series. Like ReZero, like for some reason, bro, like when I read ReZero, like I blank out. Like I read a volume of ReZero, I'm just like, yo, I can't even understand this. Like what's going on? Like sometimes I have to really pay attention when I read ReZero light novel. Like because I sometimes if I'll like miss a detail. Like I just miss a detail and I just like forget what happened. Whereas like with this, I can kind of slack off a little bit, but I still have to pay attention to a certain extent because of all the psychological thrillers that happen. With all like the interactions between the characters and the little details. You still have to pay attention for this one, but it's a little bit easier. But they're both hard. Like both like ReZero, Classmate Elite, like Mushoku Tensei, like all the light novels that I read, like they're actually like pretty high level. And there's like even like for an ability that like even for me right now, like there's still some words that like I was able to pick out like expressions. Like recently I picked up the expression for nento o oite. So nento, so it's basically the first kanji nen is basically nen no tame, and then nento like to is like atama no kanji, and then like oite is oku koto, so oku, right? So nento oite, which basically means like koryo suru, koryo, like you basically monogoto o koryo ni suru, like you basically take into consideration of something, right? And I knew all the kanji in there, so I was able to read it fine, but like that was just like a new way of phrasing it that like I wasn't exposed to before. Nento oku. So that's the thing with light novels. It's like even if you understand like literally 95% of what's going on, and like even like the language you understand 95% of it, sometimes like there's that extra 5% of expressions that like you can always pick out. Because my level of Japanese is pretty high, but there's still some phrases that like I don't even pick out, and I don't really end up knowing. Like I'm just kind of like, okay, well that's fine. But guys, this light novel was crazy. This light novel, honestly, one of the best light novels of all time. Like, I'm not exaggerating, guys. This is like really one of a kind. With the way the cast is phenomenal. Okay, like the cast, like Ichinose, Horikita, Ayano Koji, like Ryuen, like holy shit, bro, Ryuen, like bro, Ryuen is like one of those one of my favorite characters in the series, just because like. Not only did he get like absolutely beat up by Ayano Koji, right? But his development and character also with that. Like it kind of when Ayano Koji like absolutely beat like Ryuen, like that kind of humbled him a lot, But when you see him like, he basically like stopped like trying to be like a dictator of class of his class after he got beat by Ayano Koji. But you see like now like where I'm at the light novel in year 2. Ryuen has started to pick back up again. He started to basically start to like lead it, but he's not taking it in he's not doing the same like cocky authoritative way of leading, but he's like actually leading. So that's like one of the really interesting things with like Ryuen's character is like he still has that pride of him being like him being cocky and like doing whatever he wants, but he's more reserved now because Ayano Koji kind of humbled him. Like, Ayano Koji kind of put him in place. And just seeing Ryuen's character is developed and his, like seeing his character development is actually insane. For me, like, that's, like, one of the hidden gems of Classmate Elite is, like, Ryuen. Like, Ryuen's character is, like, actually, like, I love it now. Like, now he's, like, easily like, one of my favorite characters. Just seeing his development. And, with everything that happens in light novel, especially with Horikita, like, holy crap. Like, her character development for a female? Like, bro, that's the thing, guys. Like, the female characters are insanely good here. Like, Horikita's development from, like, she would do everything by herself. She would try to chase her, older brother. But then she kind of matured a little bit. She developed, and now she's, like, trying to be her own best. And now she's cooperating with other people, right? Just seeing that development. And same with, Kei. Like Ayano Koji's girlfriend, right? Like, just seeing that like her development from like when she was bullied and then like now she's like now more matured, like well she's still kind of like a little baby compared to Horikita, but like I feel like she's like I like her character Kay, right? Like she has her own unique way of you know of her character, and that's really like I really like it, especially with what happened with like you know at the rooftop with Yuen and Iron Koji fighting, like the whole scene, bro. You know I think like the Classmate Elite gets a little bit, it's a little bit slow in the beginning, right? What I mean, well, if you read volume 1, 2, and 3, you know, you might be like, okay, well, like, what's the hype behind this novel? It's like it starts, it's still good, but it still takes time to set up. And then the moment you hit volume 4, that's when it started to get really interesting for me. Like when it hit volume 4, I was like, okay, maybe something's picking up here, right? And then when I read volume 7, right, which is where basically Yuen and Ayano Koji attacked, that is when Ayano Koji, like, I mean, that is when Classmate Elite became like super good. Like for me, that's when it like whoa, like went up. And then of course like stuff after that became like it was like crazy. And then what's crazier is that with year 2, it actually becomes even better. So like, you know, so it's like it just, the light novel just keeps getting better and better like the longer I read it, which is such an amazing thing because most series like they're really good in the beginning but they kind of fall off at the end. Whereas like with Classmate Elite, like it's just getting better, bro. You know? So yeah, guys, that's like a review of year 1. Of course, I did a reread, so this is a complete reread, right? And the reason why like I don't do rereads with light novels is because it takes so long, bro. Like the same time that I read all of year 1, I could have read the whole entire One Piece manga in that time frame. In fact, probably it would have taken longer to read this, the entire like, you know, how many volumes there are in here? There's like I think roughly 14 light novel volumes of Classmate Elite. It would have taken more time to read 14 volumes of Classmate Elite than to read like all the volumes in chapters of One Piece. Right? That's why, you know, I don't typically reread light novel series because, you know, it's like a book. It's like you're reading 14 different books, right? And that takes a long time because typically for me, like I'm reading it in Japanese. And even though my Japanese ability is like really good, like I could speed read it. Like, you know, I could definitely speed read things, but like I don't want to speed read it because like I want to actually pay attention to the details when I read it, right? And I think that's the thing that happened with the first read. Like with the first read, I was just trying to get through the book as fast as possible. Whereas with the second reread, I was actually like kind of like chilling a little bit, but like taking it slower. Like in the aspect that like I was trying to pay attention to details and especially like Japanese phrases and words I didn't know before, right? And I was able to pick out a lot of like words that like, oh, I didn't know this word, right? But I guess I missed it out on the first read because I was just breezing. I was just kind of like speed reading the first read, right? Trying to get through the books. So that's why I'm taking a little bit slower with this one. With the reread. But yeah, guys, the year 1 was amazing. And I'm gonna read year 2 and the stuff that happens after. But yeah, guys, like I'm excited about this light novel, guys, because you know, and the reason why I wanted to reread it was because like I knew that I would have missed details. See, like if I just went straight and picked off from where I left off, like what I could have done is I could have just reread this and then picked off from there. But I felt like I would have missed a lot of details, like in year 1 and before. So that's why, like, you know, I was like, you know what, like I just decided to like reread it completely, you know, because it's just easier that way, to just reread it, everything, capture all the details, and then go into year 2 fully knowing all the development and all the characters of what happened. Because like, you know, it's been 3 years, I would have forgotten, right? So like, and with this light novel, like you need to have a lot of memory. Like you need to have good memory of all the characters of what happened because they mentioned things from before. So that's why I like, okay, that's why I need to like reread this. But yeah, guys. Whereas like ReZero, like with ReZero, I don't have to reread all of ReZero for me to continue to read ReZero. Like I could just pick off from where I left with ReZero because it's like structured into arcs, right? And each arc is like kind of separate from the other, right? So I'm able to pick up from there. But like with ReZero, with Classmate Elite, it's like you don't want to do that. Like with Classmate Elite, like you want to know like every little thing that kind of happened with the characters. Because if you just pick it up after like 3 years, like you might forget everything. You know, you might forget the characters. You know, like I actually forgot a couple characters, bro. Like I forgot like the name for that. I mean, I knew the character. Like I knew Nanase like from year 2, Like I knew her. Like I of course I knew about her, but I forgot her name. And same with Amasawa. Like I forgot her name. Like even though I knew that crazy little girl, like, but like her name I forgot. So like I forgot the name of the characters, bro. So that's the thing. It's been 3 years, but rereading it with a little bit higher Japanese ability, I was definitely able to capture way more details. And yeah, this light novel was insane, guys. It's a smooth read. Of course, you gotta pay attention a little bit when you read it, but generally speaking, it's like a medium to high level of Japanese you gotta read. Like you need to have like real good Japanese for you to read this, because like this is not some like easy light novel. Like every light novel I've read is like super hard. It was like I'm just like, why did I get myself to this? Like the easiest light novel I've read is Konosuba. Konosuba is probably like the easiest light novel that I've read, right? Because it has really easy language. But with Oregairu, right, which is like really hard. Like you guys read that, like just because it's slice of life and romance does not mean it's like actually read the novel. It's hard. And Classmate Elite, like ReZero, Mushoku Tensei, like I'm just reading like super hard stuff, and that's probably the reason why my vocabulary is so developed in Japanese. It's because I'm just reading these like hard light novels, but like these light novels are like rated really high, and I like, kind of want to read them. So I guess it's like shikatanai, right? I'm just gonna become like a master Jedi at Japanese then. Like I'm just gonna become a master then. You know what I mean? So yeah, guys. But that's my review for year 1 of Classmate Elite.